Imagine a commander who fought in over 100 battles against the greatest empires of his time and never once tasted defeat. This is the story of Khalid ibn al-Walid, the man known to history as the Sword of Allah, a military genius whose tactics are still studied in war colleges today. Born into the powerful Banu Makhzum clan of Mecca, Khalid was raised in a culture that prized martial skill, horseback riding, and the art of the sword above all else. Long before he became the champion of Islam, Khalid was its most dangerous enemy, his tactical brilliance that was first felt by the early Muslims at the Battle of Uhud. While others saw a stalemate, Khalid saw an opening. He led a daring cavalry charge around the rear of the mountain, catching the Muslim archers completely off guard. It was a masterclass in flanking maneuvers, a sign of the tactical innovations that would define his career. But even after this victory, a change was brewing within him. In the year 629, Khalid traveled to Medina. He didn't come to fight, but to submit. He embraced Islam, and the Prophet Muhammad gave him a new purpose. His first test under his new banner came at the Battle of Mu'tah. Faced with a massive Byzantine force, the Muslim commanders fell one by one until the standard was passed to Khalid. The situation was dire. Legend says Khalid broke 9 swords in the heat of the fighting, but he didn't just fight. He orchestrated a brilliant fighting retreat. By rearranging his troops and creating the illusion of reinforcements, he intimidated the Byzantines and led his outnumbered men back to safety in Medina. It was after this miraculous escape that the Prophet Muhammad named him Saifullah, the Sword of Allah, a title he would defend for the rest of his life. Following the death of the Prophet, Khalid was tasked with the Ridda Wars, a series of campaigns to reunify the Arabian Peninsula under the first Caliph Abu Bakr. At the Battle of Yamama, he faced Musaylima and an army that far outnumbered his own. The fighting was some of the most brutal the desert had ever seen. Khalid personally led the final charge into the Garden of Death, ending the rebellion and securing the future of the Caliphate. With Arabia united, the Caliph turned his eyes towards the 2 superpowers of the day, the Sassanid Persian Empire and the Byzantine Empire. Khalid was sent to Iraq. At the Battle of Chains, he used the Persians' own heavy armor against them by forcing them into a grueling march before the fight even began. He issued a challenge to the Persian commander: submit or face men who love death as much as you love life. It wasn't just a threat, it was a psychological weapon. In battle after battle, Khalid outmaneuvered the Sassanids. At the Battle of Ulaes, he executed a series of lightning strikes that shattered their resistance. But his greatest challenge lay to the west. The Caliph ordered Khalid to leave Iraq and reinforce the Muslim armies in Syria, which were facing a massive Byzantine build-up. To get there in time, Khalid had to do the impossible: lead his army across the waterless Syrian desert, a route no army had ever dared to take. They survived by having camels drink massive amounts of water, then slaughtering them along the way to use the stored water for the horses. 5 days later, the Ghost Army emerged from the desert behind Byzantine lines, catching the empire completely off guard. Khalid quickly took command of the unified forces. He knew that the Byzantines were preparing a massive counter-offensive that would decide the fate of the Middle East. The 2 armies met at the Yarmouk River. The Byzantines brought nearly 150,000 men. Khalid had less than 40,000. The Battle of Yarmouk lasted for 6 grueling days. It was a test of endurance, discipline, and most importantly, Khalid's ability to read the battlefield. On the final day, Khalid unleashed his mobile guard, an elite cavalry unit he kept in reserve to strike wherever the line was weakest. He drove a wedge between the Byzantine infantry and their cavalry, isolating the foot soldiers and pushing them toward the steep ravines of the Yarmouk. The Byzantine defeat was total. The road to Jerusalem and the rest of the Levant was now open. The map of the world had been changed forever. But at the height of his glory, Khalid received a letter from the new Caliph, Umar. He was to be relieved of his command. Umar didn't doubt Khalid's skill. He feared the people were beginning to credit Khalid for the victories rather than God. He wanted to prove that the cause was greater than any one man. Khalid accepted the decision without a word of protest. He spent his final years in the city of Homs, a retired soldier who had given everything to his faith. On his deathbed, Khalid wept, not out of fear, but because he had sought a martyr's death on the battlefield, but was dying in a bed like an old camel. He said, "There is not a space the size of a hand on my body that does not have a scar, yet here I am." He died in the year 642, undefeated and unmatched. Khalid ibn al-Walid remains one of the few generals in history to never lose a battle. His legacy is etched in the sands of the Middle East and the annals of military history. The sword of Allah may have been sheathed, but the world he helped build stands to this day, a reminder that genius, when paired with conviction, can change the course of history.